Nothing I share here is financial advice. This is all based on my own experience, my strategy, and how I see the market. You're responsible for your own trades, so always do your own research, manage your risk, and never trade money you can't afford to lose. This content is meant to help you learn and think for yourself, not to copy or follow blindly. Let's keep it educational and intentional. To the White Rabbit Trading Channel. Let's see what we have. First of all, let's take a look at our bottom levels. In the last video, I showed these levels as the areas where Bitcoin historically found its bear market bottoms. We have the lowest level, which is currently around the 48K area. But before that, we have the production cost and the power law bottom areas. Long story short, price has now tested these levels again. It does not need to touch them to the exact dollar. These are zones, not precise numbers. Price can stop slightly above them or even wick below them and still respect the area. For now, however, price stopped right there once again and did not break the range to the downside. Because of that, this remains a support area, and I am not aiming for the lower levels at the moment. We will observe how this develops over time. In the bullish case, we would see something similar to previous cycles where price slowly grinds higher from this area. If that happens, then we know the zone is holding and the reaction was meaningful. If the area gets lost, then we can start talking about the next lower levels. I also bought spot on the SFP and plan to buy more. If this really is the bottom area, then over the next months and years, the model itself continues rising. That means everything bought in this region benefits from that longer-term trend, even if it takes time. Of course, we never know whether these models will continue working exactly as they have in the past. Always keep that in mind. We are working with statistics and levels that have historically performed well, and we take risk based on those probabilities. But nobody can guarantee that new market conditions will not appear and eventually lead to these levels breaking. That is why you should never go all in and only risk what you can afford to lose. For me, however, I am a trader, so I have to trade what I see. On the bigger picture, that means I am buying in this area and planning to hold at least until a new all-time high. That is the goal for the longer-term positions. Next, let's look at the yearly fib time and price chart. Here, price formed the last top right at the yearly fib timing window and then moved lower, eventually reaching the low of the current range. Now we're seeing a bounce from that area. This chart becomes much more relevant again once we approach the next yearly fib timing window. At that point, we will reassess the situation. Are we still ranging near the lows? Are we dropping further? Are we already rising? Wherever price is at that time, we will look for price and time to meet and hopefully give us another reaction, or ideally, a reversal, just like we have seen at previous yearly fib timings. Until then, we focus on level-to-level trading. Price is currently bouncing from support, so now we look for resistance. As long as price remains below resistance, we should expect at least a retest or a range rather than immediately assuming a breakout. One possibility is that price simply grinds lower along this trend line and retests the lows. Another possibility is that price breaks above the trend line, holds it as support, and continues moving higher from there. Or price could reach the next major SR level around the 65K area, reject from it, and continue ranging until the next fib timing window is reached. That is what I'm watching right now. If price starts breaking above resistance, then I will target the next level higher, step by step, until we reach the timing window and can evaluate the reaction. Now let's check an indicator, here on the Reven indicator, which you can get as well from Crown's website. By the way, if you use the code WHITERABBIT, you get a discount. And with this indicator, you also get access to the trading strategy. So if you're interested, check it out. Now to the levels. Here it's pretty straightforward. Below price, we have support levels starting around 60.8K, then 59K, and finally 57.3K as it stands right now. These levels are moving over time, so they will slowly change as the indicator updates. For us, that means if price comes down into those areas, we would look for a reaction, potential profit taking on shorts, or new long opportunities. If a setup is present, these levels can provide very nice confluences. On the upside, the main level is the midline, which currently sits around 68K. As you can see, the midline is moving lower and lower, At some point, price will eventually reclaim it. However, based on the indicator itself, as long as price remains below the midline, we are not really aiming for new highs yet. So for now, the midline acts as a potential confluence area for resistance. Once it gets broken and reclaimed, then we can start targeting higher levels. That is something worth watching over the coming days and potentially looking for trades when the strategy itself triggers an entry. For now, price is more or less trading in the middle of nowhere on this indicator. Because of that, it is not particularly interesting to me at the moment. The levels below remain support until they are broken, and as long as price holds support, sooner or later it should make its way back up to test resistance again. In this case, that resistance is the 68K midline. Of course, if price moves sideways or continues retracing, the midline itself will keep coming lower over time. So for now, I am basically just waiting. Either support gets tested again or price rises into resistance based on what this indicator is showing. Next, we have the range. Here I added the range fib levels that I showed last time, mainly the value area range fib. You simply pull it from the value area low to the value area high, and that gives you the deviation levels based on the current range. Price has now reached the support level, which was already aligning with the other confluences we were watching, such as the range low, the power law area, and the production cost level. For now, this remains support unless we get a deeper move into the next level. That level would align with the deviation area outside of the range. In other words, if price drops below the range, spends some time there, and then reclaims it, that would be the area I would be watching for that type of setup. Until then, we currently have a weekly SFP of the previous low, which is bullish for now, unless price loses these levels. If that happens, then I would simply target the next support area lower. On the upside, we have the previous SR level, which is the mid-range. The value area low sits almost exactly at that level, and slightly above it, we have the point of control. These levels currently align with the resistance area we were already watching on the Revin indicator and also on the yearly fib time chart. That means we now need to watch the reaction in this area and see whether price forms a range or gives us a retest before continuing. If one resistance level gets reclaimed, then we simply target the next one higher. For now, however, they remain resistance levels. Until they are reclaimed, I am looking for either a range or a move higher followed by a retest. You can also see that the rabbit box triggered a trade. Keep in mind that the setup has compounding levels lower down, all the way toward the 48.7K area. That does not mean those levels have to be filled, but they remain possible based on the historical drawdowns of the setup. For now, however, the strategy triggered its first entry here, and the target remains around 74K. If price moves lower first, then I simply get a better average entry, because the target itself remains the same. If you would like to test the strategy yourself, you are welcome to do so. It is available in the Telegram group, which you can access through Patreon. Another thing we are watching is the monthly statistical levels and average timing windows. Here we can see that price already reached the monthly statistical average for a bearish month very early in the month. However, the average low tends to form a bit later. So what we're looking for now is simple. As long as price remains within the timing window, statistically speaking, a new low can still be formed. However, if price starts ranging and the timing window passes, then based on the averages, we can assume the monthly low is likely already in place, unless new information forces us to adjust that view. Once the low is formed, we then look for the monthly high. This month, the move down happened almost immediately during the first few days. Personally, I am not aiming for a new monthly high right now. Instead, I think that once both timing windows have passed, there is a good chance we simply range and do not make a significant new high or low. In that case, we would essentially be waiting for the next month when we get fresh timing windows and another yearly fib timing window to work with. For the current local situation, I would say the value area low and the point of control remain resistance levels, while the area below remains support, very similar to what we see on the Revin indicator. What we really need now is time to pass and, ideally, some type of range to develop. You can also see the trend line I marked out. That trend line is there to confirm the daily cycle low. We would need a break above it to start confirming that scenario. As you can see, that process can take some time. If anything changes, I will update you. Now, before marking out the local levels for today, let's take a look at Ethereum and Solana. Solana. I bought Solana up here at the range highs. Happy days. Since then, it has moved lower, but I honestly have no problem with that. I still think we will see new highs on Solana at some point, so for me, it is mainly a matter of time until I get my profits, unless it somehow goes to zero or turns into a stablecoin. For now, Solana moved below the range and did not form a weekly SFP. What I want to see here is whether price can reclaim the range low. If it does, then we could be looking at a deviation scenario, and from there, we can start targeting the next higher levels again. You can also see that Solana triggered a rabbit box setup on the daily time frame. Keep in mind that it can still compound lower, but at least it gives us a signal that historically price has targeted higher levels sooner or later. So, similar to Bitcoin, I would first watch for a range to form. Only if resistance gets broken would I start aiming for the next higher levels. For a real move higher, Solana obviously needs to break the previous major high. Only then would a higher move be confirmed from a market structure perspective. I mainly wanted to give an update on where we currently stand and also show the rabbit box setup in case someone is interested in following it. Now let's take a look at Ethereum. Ethereum is in a very similar situation. It made a new low, did not form a weekly SFP, and rejected from the trend line. On the weekly time frame, Ethereum has also triggered a rabbit box trade. The compounding levels are lower here as well, and the current target sits around 3.2K. Just like Bitcoin and Solana, we need to see a trend break first. Best case, price starts moving above the last major rejection high. From there, I would start aiming for higher levels. Until then, we need to see whether Ethereum forms a range here and spend some time consolidating. I also wanted to update the rabbit box setup on Ethereum for anyone interested. These are the compounding levels, and the target remains higher for spot positions. As always, only risk what you are comfortable losing, because no strategy can guarantee that an asset cannot go to zero. But if you believe in the long-term future of the coin, then I think these setups and this strategy are very interesting for spot trading. Overall, I would say there are still good times ahead, even if things do not look great right now. Price is down, but that is often where opportunities appear. The best moves usually start when the worst-looking moves finally end. For me, these are opportunities that I'm willing to take. I am risking some money to potentially make more money later. That is the job as a trader. Now let's mark out the local levels and see what we have. So we have our new levels now. Not much has changed. I updated the average levels for today and marked out the Monday range. The average gain aligns quite nicely with the Monday range. In fact, I would say the average gain is almost perfectly aligned for an SFP scenario, unless volatility starts increasing significantly to the upside. If that happens, we need to watch whether price can actually hold above the Monday high, or if it turns into a deviation and comes back inside the range. For today, however, it is a really nice confluence setup for a Tuesday. On the downside, the average loss sits slightly below the Monday low. We also have equal lows in this area, so I think we would need to see a clean SFP of those equal lows to remain locally bullish. More likely, however, those equal lows become liquidity that gets taken before price moves into the lower level around the average loss. Personally, I would even prefer a move a bit lower into the SR level I marked from the past. I would like to see price test that level because we also have poor weekend lows sitting there, so either take out those lows or make a new low. I do not really care, as long as that level holds and the liquidity below gets cleared. The perfect scenario, although I do not know if we will get it, would be an SFP of the Monday high into the average gain area without volatility expanding too much to the upside. That would give us a rejection, and from there the first target would be the equal lows below. For longs, as I said before, I would prefer better levels and a clean sweep of the weekend lows, unless something changes and I update the plan in Telegram. Momentum-wise, the higher timeframes still show bearish pressure, so a range would make sense. Taking out the local upside stops first, and then moving into the equal lows and weekend lows below would fit the current picture quite well. From there, we can start talking about new longs, at least from a leverage trading perspective. For spot positions, I am already involved. Now, regarding my current position, I am short. I updated that yesterday. Price revisited my entry and rejected again. So if you caught the same entry or entered slightly lower, keep in mind that I may add to the position if we see a move higher first. As always, I will update my actions and thoughts in Telegram, where I go much deeper into the examples and execution process. My target for this trade is basically these lows below, with the ideal target being the weekend lows. I will look for a TP somewhere in that area and then start looking for long opportunities. If we see a move higher first, keep in mind the Monday high SFP confluence and also the possibility of a deviation if volatility starts increasing. And no, I'm not bearish overall. I simply want to trade the setups that keep repeating. Right now, I want to short from range highs or to build a short position into a move higher if needed. And then I want to do the opposite near the lows of the local range. My overall higher time frame view should be clear by now. I remain bullish unless proven wrong and unless the metrics and data points start losing their edge. A deeper deviation is always possible, but we have to go step by step. For now, there is still a higher probability that the SFP holds. Historically, we have around an 85% chance for the SFP to hold and around a 95% chance of making a new high afterwards. So unless I see a weekly close below the previous low, I have to work with the idea that support holds and manage my trades around that assumption. And that's basically it. For today, I'm not doing anything in this area because I already have a trade open and I'm targeting lower prices. However, if we get a move higher first, I will adjust the plan and either add to the position or update what I'm doing. On the upside, keep an eye on the structure stops on the left side and on the average gain area that aligns with the Monday high SFP confluence. Then we will see how it plays out and come back with the next update in a few days or on Friday. If you still want regular updates, I post those in the Telegram group, so you are welcome to join. Until then, I wish you a nice day, and I will see you in the next one.